reading on Twitter all of the threads and everything that's been going on? I think I saw you put a little response on somewhere.
I did. I was like, all right, I'll chime in. Like, this is good, this is bad, this sucks, this is gonna get better, and that's where we're at.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow.
I'm scared for the community because it's so heated right now.
It's yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it. Well, I do get it, but I don't. Okay, parts of it I don't get. Just because I've spoken to a couple of people now, and I'm even feeling this way that you kind of want to give it a try, but then there's so many people that you kind of admire or that like you've spoken to that you like that you consider yourself friends with that are like, if I see anyone doing NFT, I'm gonna unfollow them, block them, blah blah, this,
I
that, and the
know.
other. So yeah, I don't know how to feel about it.
I know. It's
You go.
kind of what?
I I kind of feel like doing a video about it, but I don't really know how I'll do it yet. I was thinking, because like when I get overwhelmed with a feeling of something, I think, well, let's put it into a video or make a piece of art about it. But
Sure.
there's no good way to do this one without like flaming one side or the
There's
other.
not. You're right. Like I had no idea just how crazy it is, and I'm like, you know what? It's cool because you see people put up these NFTs, and then they they'll get like they'll set the bidding and they'll get the bidding,
Hmm. Yeah.
and like one Ethereum now I think is like 1,000 for $1,400 or something.
Yeah. Something
It's
like
up
that.
there, and you're realizing like people are actually getting it, and then I'm like, that's kind of like a cool kind of gold rush mentality, but then at the same time, it's almost like you'll be hated. So what kind of hit are you going to take on your audience? And then the other thing that comes into mind is all these crypto millionaires. Like, Where's that money coming from?
Yeah, that's like one of the biggest questions like I've had in my mind, which is who's paying the ridiculous amounts of money for like these very, you know, some of the artwork's really cool, some of it's really simple, but it's like who is actually paying for that? Because
Yeah,
I don't know, it's weird.
it's like it's like it just screams money laundering to me. But
Hmm.
I mean, on the other hand, I'm like, well, why shouldn't artists get to finally cash in on something? You know, why shouldn't we? Like,
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to think like, oh well, I always have to do the right thing and be the environmental one and remain poor. Like, no.
yeah.
While other people just run rampant destroying the planet, I have to like be the ethical and moral one and suck it all up. Like, so
I'm
why
gonna
not?
take a wild guess and say that we're talking about crypto art and cryptocurrency
of,
and the like.
of course
Yep.
we are. Of course we are.
Yep.
That's
Like
only appropriate.
Twitter,
Yeah.
man. We were
What
saying
is
Twitter. What is happening on that? I can't literally the last two times I've gone onto Twitter, the homepage, the first tweet that pops up is either someone
Yeah.
saying, "Look what I've made," or "I hate people doing NFT." It's one or the
Yep.
other, and I'm just mad. I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah,
Just
I saw a tweet today that was kind of I don't know if incendiary is really the right word because it wasn't that much, but kind of to that same vein where it's like I'm tired of seeing people on my Twitter feed talking
Hmm.
about NFTs, you know, and I wonder if that's going to be like the next, we can't talk about the Moronic Iris because then we get demonetized or whatever. And not that BlenderNest is monetized, in case you're wondering, but it's kind of like one of those buzzwords that the algorithm picks up and is like, "Oh, okay, flag this." I wonder if NFTs is going to be the next thing,
maybe.
I know.
because it seems to really be riling a lot of people up.
Well,
Yeah.
I I'm in this weird spot because I feel both sides really strongly.
I
Wait, were you saying Archer?
oh
Oh.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to cut
Oh.
in because I could talk about this
Yeah, I know you
forever.
could. You could go for like 10 hours on this. I was gonna say
Yeah.
like I feel both
I
sides
could
really
listen for
strongly
10 hours.
because like what on one side when Cryptoart started, I had what I think a lot of people in the community are having right now, which is the spite feeling, which is really you uploaded a cube and you're getting $1,000. Like, come on, man, that's not fair. And the other side of it is I acknowledge, and I've said it in like all the other podcasts, that hard work doesn't guarantee success and all that, and everything's very situational. Right place, right time, right thing, whatever. Like, who cares? That I'm so split down the middle because I want like I don't know how to describe it.
I think it's huge that you recognize that, though. Just for anybody listening, like I feel like there's a lot of people at the moment who are saying these sort of things, or have said, hard work doesn't necessarily guarantee success, where however you might define success, that are now kind of like, but look at this piece that I made. It took me 8 hours to do. This is a copy of this other thing. And feeling that spite, which if it's not to say that it's not a valid feeling, but not really recognizing that there's sort of a what do they call it, like a disconnect there, or like a dissonance.
I do feel like people on the whole, like society wise, want hard work to equal success, except for when it applies to them, just generally speaking. It's selfish. It's true though. It's human nature. It's survivalist.
You just called everyone out.
I did. I'm calling you all out, and I can call you out because I feel the same damn way. That's how it is.
Oh yeah, me too.
It's true. I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of people right now who have either just minted their first artwork or have been in it for a little bit, and I'm looking at it kind of from a sense of, as I'm sure a lot of people are, Aaron!
Hey, Aaron.
Wow!
Look at the facial hair! Whoa.
I've not seen Aaron with facial hair, but I'm loving it.
Damn.
That's awesome. I'm jealous. So, I've talked to a lot of people in the space who are sort of either early wave or have been on it for a while, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of, as an artist, like, and I think we were kind of touching on this a little bit when I jumped in, like, you want to be not recognized for your work, but you want people to, I don't know, I feel like artists have to eat too, And I think that's like an argument that a lot of people are kind of harping on and not necessarily seeing the other side, which I'm sure like we could talk about for hours on end too, which is the environmental impact. But I firmly believe that as we start to see this as a more not valid, but as a way of having a one-to-one connection between artists and the people who are either collecting or supporting them, and just in terms of like financial transactions, that will find a way to mitigate those costs. And in fact, there are already some systems that are doing this, and some that are coming sort of in the future that have implemented ways to offset the gas prices, the energy cost, and the like. So to me, it's still a very exciting idea. And I said this in the last podcast too, and it's not really going to change because I see a lot of value in it on so many different angles.
One of the issues with Cryptoart as well is so many of the main platforms are working on Ethereum blockchain. And that's really like the thing that everybody has against it is one of the things that everybody has against it is the environmental impact. But then if you look at other platforms which are not using Ethereum, or other platforms which don't actually mint onto the blockchain until it's purchased, you're reducing the environmental costs massively in those cases. So you're kind of almost mitigating the issue.
Yeah, there's also active effort into creating marketplaces and systems in which that don't require these sort of hefty calculations and energy costs and the like. And don't quote me on this, but I believe Cardano and sort of the ADA currency will soon have a marketplace, and people will be able to sort of exchange using that, and then that will offset some of the concerns on Ethereum-based marketplaces and exchanges. But to that, and I think we've touched on this too, I find it kind of funny because a lot of the people that are sort of on my timeline that are old friends are just hearing about this for the first time, or sort of thinking about this space as now something that could be that is harmful to the environment, but at the same time there are people that are driving like huge cars, eating meat, taking flights left and right, even during a global pandemic, not wearing masks and all these things. It's like that's the hill you're going to die on.
Yeah, exactly. That's the hill you're going to die on. That's exactly what it comes down to with me. I'm like, really, you're typing out this complaint against EFT on your phone, like, how much power does it take for this? And you're posting. Same people would be posting on Instagram, like, look at me in Rio de Janeiro. Look at me on the top of Mount Everest or whatever. Like, and you're gonna complain about like some artists making money with crypto. It's like, come on, it's just logic. Like, if you're gonna argue that, break down the entire cost granularly. Break down the cost of crypto and the environmental impact of crypto versus every other thing that's consuming massive amounts of energy on this planet, and then realize that if you're going to die on that hill, that's great. You're free to die on that hill. I see both sides of this. So I'm not doing crypto art right now at the moment, so I don't even have a stake in this. But man, like, just look at what's going on the planet.
Yeah.
You don't have those decisions. Billionaires have those decisions.
We start off with the kind of the psychological aspect that's kind of going on Twitter, which I'm sure you've seen, Aaron. A lot of the how should we put it, contentious threads on Twitter about crypto art. And I was saying about how I'm so split down the middle because I feel both sides. Because I started off looking at crypto art from a very spiteful perspective, and like, I see the pathway to like making dreams come true and all that, through that kind of tech. And it's like, you really want it, but it's the hard work doesn't guarantee success angle, which we kind of mentioned. That's what people have issue with, because when they see like, those extremely simplified scenes that could take like, I don't know, 18 seconds to put together that are making like thousands of dollars. I mean, come on, you could generate like 1 million of them a day with a very simple script. It's not difficult.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, that's the spiteful element, and I get it, right? And a lot of people get it. But at the same time, like we said, it doesn't guarantee success. Right place, right time. There are stupid people making millions on YouTube for no good reason and whatever as well. So you've got to get your head around that.
It's the same as any platform. Like, if you actually look at the division of costs or the division of earning, it's exactly the same as in any other industry. Like, it's still like the top 1% is making 50% of the income.
I think one of the good things about the fact that this is happening within this community is that, generally speaking, I think, at least from my experience in it so far, it's one that's welcome to the criticism, and I welcome the criticism behind NFTs, behind crypto art, cryptocurrencies, etc. Because one of the things, and I think I said this in the previous podcast, so if you haven't seen it, if you haven't subscribed, do it now. If you like what we're talking about, hit that like button. Let us know. Drop some comments below if you have any questions, hand things, YouTube. Is that we don't want to copy and paste the bad things that we don't like about our current systems into the digital representations of them. So as long as we can have educated, like, responsible conversations about the things that we like, the things that we don't like, the things that we would like to see changed, then we can actually be agents to that change, because we have the power in some way with our voice and with the things that we support. And so, Kev, earlier you said that you don't really have a stake in this, but I think you do. I think at least everyone that's sort of in this room does. If you're listening to this, you do, because just like with everything else, sort of to Aaron's point, like, if you support it, it's going to grow. And if you don't, it just won't. And so, like, we have that ability is kind of put your money where your mouth is, or put your crypto, like, looping back to another point that you were touching on, Kev, is like, right now, right, it's sure, there's a lot of like energy cost and the like attached to this, but if we think about the waste that we're saving from, right, if we move to a world in which people collect things that are digital, and that maybe, and I don't know the numbers on this, is not financial advice, I'm not a scientist in this field, but just thinking about, like, if I want to collect stuff and just keep it all on my phone, and I have a digital wallet in which I'm going to like put all the things that I want to collect, and I don't want to buy things, then just think about all the plastic that I'm not adding into the environment, all the other practices that I'm not supporting. Kev, to like your point, like, I have an iPhone, we kind of have an idea of like the conditions under which this thing was created, so in some way, like, I hypocritically am supporting this system. But maybe through the things that I can create using this tool, using the iPad that I'm doing this on, like using my computer, I can help offset some of that bad in the world. And I think that as long as we look at it through that lens and kind of focus on what actionable change we can impart, then we will be to some degree of fine.
You're right. And like in the grand scheme of things, oil is supposed to be a transitional technology. It's not supposed to be the be all end all of everything, right? We should have used oil to get to renewable energy, right? We move in phases. Civilization moves in phases and technology moves in phases, right? And supposedly like the thing that comes after the last thing that was destructive is supposed to be better than the thing that was destructive, right? And I think people are worried now that this crypto art thing is going to just like totally destroy the environment. But if I'm crypto mining and I have a bank of GPUs, right? And I'm paying like, I don't know, $10 per kilowatt hour. I'm just going to use that. I have no idea what the breakdown is right now. But I can put a solar panel on my roof that gets me down, in a few months, gets me down to $5 per kilowatt hour. And then after that, I can reinvest and put two solar panels or three or four or put a few of them in my backyard and then be completely renewable. And then all the energy that I'm using for crypto mining is renewable energy on my own system. And I'm paying almost nothing per kilowatt hour. I'm going to chase that. If I'm like halfway decent at business, I'm chasing that. So then it becomes renewable. So that's kind of where it should be going.
So
Yeah.
a lot of the big mining, I don't know what you'd call them, sort of like the data centers in China, they're situated near hydroelectric systems where they produce so much power during the rainy season that they
Oh, yeah.
can't actually use that power. It's almost
Exactly.
like they require the data centers to actually take it off the grid.
Mhm.
So I think there's quite a lot of renewable energy being used in mining. And also, I just want to say that crypto is people make money on crypto. And some people who are artists are they're now in a position that they can invest in other artists' work. But for the most part, at the beginning especially, it was just people who already had a standing wallet, wasn't it? Who were investing in this new thing that was crypto art. But crypto is always going to happen. And really it's just artists are now able to kind of commercialize on that as well. The actual impact on crypto growth caused by artists coming into the scene is probably, I have no figures on this, but I would say it's probably negligible. Yeah.
There's like my mom and I were just talking about this literally right before this call, because I was like, Mom, do you have any Bitcoin? But have you heard of this thing called Bitcoin? And yeah, I'm just slinging cryptocurrencies, man. Like in our country, Venezuela, the value of, don't quote me on this, I don't know the exact figures, I overheard somebody say it, but the value of a bolivar, but I believe it, I strongly believe it, a bolivar is currently lesser than that of like a fraction of Bitcoin or Satoshis, right? And so using that as a store of value in countries that are developing or third world countries, or however you may want to like phrase the financial or economic situation of the country right now, makes sense in a way, especially if we have sort of the belief that these systems can improve and can work for others. And I think, like you said, Aaron, like giving the artist the ability to not only sustain and support themselves, but also other artists is also something that we can't look away from. And I would say that that's non-negligible. And kind of going back to the energy aspect of it, like my mom founded an environmental organization, nonprofit in 2005, geared towards educating the Hispanic community in South Florida, and then that later evolved to be the country, about environment, climate change, and education in Spanish and in English as well. And it's like I've been part of the Climate Reality Project with Al Gore, and so this figure that constantly gets regurgitated and kind of spun in a weird negative way. Want to just put it out there, like we were talking about the electric plants and solar panels. Like if you, the sun's not going anywhere as far as we know, right? So if you put a solar panel up on your house, eventually you're gonna have way too much energy than you know like what to do with. Then you won't need it to supply your house, past a certain point. And something that currently, like systems that are in place right now, is that you could just sell that to your neighbor, or you can like sell that back to the people that are providing the solar panel, or it just depends on which company and what country you're in. But the idea is like these renewable energies only help all of us because, one, we're not fogging up our cities with exhaust and smokestacks and the like, and two, it's like the sun's always going to be there again, as far as we know. And if guess what? Like if it's not, we have bigger problems to worry about than like where we
Exactly.
get our energy from, right?
Yeah.
So and like hydroelectric power, like wind power, and all of these renewable resources, if we continue to find ways to combine them with the push towards digital, like then we're good. Like something I was telling my mom was like, I don't envision a future in which we're all holding paper, not dollars, but like paper currencies and coins. Like I feel like I haven't really touched a paper bill. It's been slowly decreasing throughout the years. Like maybe once, twice in the past couple of years, I've had to do an exchange like that, and it's now like kind of weird. I find it hard to believe that if we shift towards these renewable resources and towards these greener ways of doing things, that we won't be in a better place. Like part of the reason why the economy in Venezuela currently is tanked is because at some point, like the wealth of a melted coin was actually more than the coin itself, because the material that it took to make the coin costed more than the value that the coin had. And so, like, I'm Kev, you were saying, like, at some point it made sense, right? But it doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah,
and we just need to shift away from that.
Well, hyperinflation took hold. I mean, yeah, Venezuela it followed a number of other countries into that black abyss of hyperinflation. But yeah, when the value of the actual coin, the metal in the coin or the paper that is printed on is worth more than the denomination, you got a problem. So yeah, you're right. But I do think going digital and going renewable is where this is going. Jump on now. I think the ecological impact now is temporary. Unless people, unless, like I said, the oil companies want to keep it going, which they fight tooth and nail. They have lobbyists, they have power, and they have entire like cults behind them to push, keeping fossil fuel alive. But I mean, we're seeing the push.
I think it's a good thing that artists are moving into this space, because artists are kind of always the ones who share ideas in a way which is very easily consumable, right? If you get an image of something, and especially artists who are doing stuff around environmental impact of crypto, while in crypto, in the crypto space. So I think it's good, because a lot of the people who were in crypto before I'm not going to say they didn't care about the environment, but a lot of them were in it to make money, and that often trumps the kind of moral concerns for a lot of people. But then if you look at like electric cars, to make a battery is horrible. It's a horrible process, and it's incredibly destructive to the environment. However, if nobody invested in electric cars to begin with, we wouldn't have electric cars. We'd still all be driving petrol, diesel, gas. And now we're in a situation because people invested in that technology and it got more attention and people were more interested in it.
Yep.
You start getting better, more streamlined processes for making batteries. They're more efficient. The supply chain is more localized, so you have fewer air miles going into it. And just the whole thing becomes more and more environmentally friendly. Making a battery is still bad, obviously, but it's considerably less bad than it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago when electric cars started being sort of teased into the market. So I think an uptake of it's something like crypto, if it's taking a broader appeal, then it's just gonna improve the whole situation. Like we're gonna see with Ethereum 2.0, people with like proof of stake, I think it's called, and that's going to be like a massive change because of the reduction in the blockchain transactions. So, but that's not something that would have happened if people hadn't invested in Ethereum to begin with, because there wouldn't have been the interest there.
Using the bad to get to the better is always kind of how we've done things as humans. We started off burning coal for steam. Steam power. Oh, steam power is great. Yeah, but where does it come from? Burning coal. burning coal. And then they I've been inside the Lackawanna coal mines in Pennsylvania. Like I've been down underneath, like 300 feet down or whatever it was, 180 feet down or whatever. And the people who were down there extracting this stuff, it was crazy. It was a crazy industry. And all of a sudden it kind of dried up when oil took over, and then oil became more powerful. And we stopped heavily mining and relying on anthracite. So we started burning, oil and then natural gas, and now solar and wind and hydroelectric and geothermal and all this stuff. And I think it moves, and we do improve as time goes on, because I think at the heart of it, we know we don't want to destroy the planet. Yeah, there are people who want to keep their ancient industries alive no matter what, and they'll fight tooth and nail for it. But like, I don't feel like we should be blaming the artists for that. And on the other side of that too, the people who are complaining, I kind of just laugh at, because I'm like, the only people who have a right to complain about any of this stuff are the Amish, because they're not using electricity. They're still living the old ways. They have horse and buggy. Like, unless you're Amish, stop. You just stop, because something you're doing,
if you want to make a statement as well, like, so for me, I don't drive a car, I don't fly, I don't eat meat, I don't do many things. Like, my computer is the power that I consume. If it's not coming through my computer or charging my phone, I don't consume it. Or I suppose the heating for the house as well. But I have a relatively small footprint. But then if I want to make a statement about this, because I kind of feel like going into an Ethereum blockchain marketplace, it doesn't sit well with me. Not like, I'm not going to go out and slam other people, but I will open discussions with people about stuff. But at the same time, I don't want to go in. I've had a Maker's Place account since 2018, since they started. And then I've got a known origin account now as well. And I minted stuff on Maker's Place to begin with before I knew any of this stuff. But then it's just, I don't know, I couldn't do it now. But then if you want to make a statement, if you want to support this kind of change towards an environmental, sustainable mindset, then look into some of the other marketplaces that don't use Ethereum blockchain and make your statement by minting your work there and making those platforms more successful. Because if people are using those ones instead, then you get a shift away from these destructive marketplaces into a more sustainable one, then that's you actually making a proper difference rather than just screaming into the void on Twitter.
I like the psychological factor. That's the most interesting one for me, because, like, again, with Twitter and all that, I haven't seen anything pop up that's this immediately divisive. Like, not since, like, I guess the UK general elections. That's when my Twitter last flared up. But what it has really shown is, the kind of personalities that immediately jump on get rich quick schemes, and how everyone likes to pretend that they're not that person, right? They're not the kind of person that would be shallow enough to jump on a get rich quick scheme. This is the one that really shows up, like, what kinds of people, what their behavior is really like. Also virtue signaling, because everyone likes to pretend that they're environmentally conscious and they're saving the planet and all that. But as soon as they're given the opportunity, like, how much is that moral sense worth, when compared to what you can do? Because imagine, like, you're a younger kid who doesn't have particularly great prospects for making a career out of, like, creative technical work, because let's face it, it's ridiculously difficult to get into it now. A degree isn't necessarily going to help you out. It depends, highly situational. And you suddenly see an opportunity where you can make low effort crap and get thousands of dollars for it. All you want to do is impress your parents. You want to make a lot of money. You want to pretend, you want to be like, I'm an artiste. Yes, look at all my work. I spent 2 minutes playing with nodes and I've got a nebula. Thousands of dollars. Of course people want that. It's a freaking easy life. So
I love it when you go off script.
So yes, of course people want it. Totally understand it. But that's what's fascinating to me, is because, like, you can look at people like who have, like, in years gone by, been so expressive about how virtuous they are, and then you see it ticking away. More and more people making lots of money on NFT. Twitter's being flooded with it, and they're like, "Oh, I opened a super rare account." You're like, "Okay, go you then. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see how your behavior changes." So yeah, I mean, I can't blame anyone for it, because let's face it, it's a cool idea. It's a really cool idea. It would be fun. Imagine that, just making art all day, every day, if you wanted.
This is not to say that if you are that person, if you're listening to this and you're like, "Are you talking about me?" Doesn't mean you can't change.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that, but just, I don't know, before you start flaming up our YouTube comments or flaming us on Twitter or whatever, just, like, do you read the boxes of all the things that you buy? Do you think about all these things too all the time? Probably not. We're only human. We got so many things to worry about already. Independent of whatever country you're in, it's probably in a weird situation because just people can't agree on things. Right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of what's exciting about this space, decentralization in general, and sort of the move towards these systems, is that so long as they continue to be democratized, or really, I don't want, maybe not democratized, but just like free and open, the way that we love our free and open source Blender, well, I think we're headed to a good place. Yeah, free and open source software, free and open source and decentralized systems of communication where we don't necessarily want, like I said, to copy and paste things from that we don't like about the physical space into the other one. Kind of like Aaron was saying, if you have concerns about supporting or taking part in the current Ethereum-based marketplaces and systems, go support another one, because at the end of the day, we also wouldn't want these Ethereum-based marketplaces and systems to be the big ones that are kind of holding all the artists and all the wealth and being the digital gatekeepers, as like this is the word that gets tossed around the most, right? It's like we don't want, the Super Rare and all these other systems are great because, the artist has no gatekeepers anymore, right? But like what happens when these places are the ones that are holding all the big artists, and now you're getting this crazy fear of missing out because you're not on Super Rare, or you're not on Known Origin, or you're not on, what's the Nifty Gateway, right? So we don't want that. So just go and support one that aligns with your views. It's like it's our planet. We're all living in it. You get one life. Just do it right. Do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
You better
lose yourself.
mix it.
All right, on that point then, what are alternatives that people can go and have a look at? Yeah, we hear so much about Super Rare and Maker's Place and Nifty.
But yes, it's OpenSea. That is OpenC, like the ocean. That's SEA.io. You can buy, sell, and discover rare digital items there. And I don't believe that you need to go through the sort of vetting system that you would need to on Super Rare or Nifty Gateway. You also can mint your artwork, and it doesn't have to be a one of one, which means that, this idea of like scarcity, if that's the right way to pronounce it, and like the cash grab of like, oh, this is the only one that's going to exist, or it's like a limited edition, is not necessarily the case unless you want it to be so. And on top of that, they have a wealth of information about, I keep saying systems, but essentially a system. So if you have any questions, like the frequently asked questions that will always inevitably come up if you're new to the space or just hearing about it for the first time, there's a wealth of knowledge there. There's also nft.tips, TIPS, and they have a wealth of information too on the space. This is not a sponsored episode. We don't, whatever, but these are the places I would go look. So,
but if there's any crypto whales out there that would like to sponsor this episode, we're very willing to take your millions of dollars. That's.
I'm looking at you, Ferocious and Beeple. Come on, Mike. Just answer my text, man.
Wait, have you sent messages to any of them?
Yeah, I sent people a message. I was going to ask him a question, and then I got cut off by somebody else on Clubhouse. That's a Clubhouse plug for the day, but that happens. And then Ferocious had a drop yesterday on Nifty Gateway, which like broke and people too. That broke Nifty Gateway. But like this is also an interesting thing, right? Because the gist of it is that Beeple, who is this 3D artist, if you don't know him, you should definitely look up his stuff. Beeple_crap on Instagram. Is very prolific. Has been doing more than 5,000 days worth of art every day consistently, not missing a day, sharing a lot to the community. And he was going to do this drop on Nifty Gateway, which is one of these non-fungible token NFT marketplaces, Cryptoart marketplaces. And it just crashed. It fully crashed. And so on the spot, they had to rethink how they wanted to sort of go about allowing people to purchase this. And so instead it was, I think they quickly turned into like a raffle-based system where if you were to purchase one of these pieces or tried to during the time that the server crashed, you were now in line to like win one of them. Wow. So it's like, this is all very new and very nascent and really exciting because it's all just constantly, I don't know, it's just moving so quickly, I think. So all this information might be moot if you're watching this in 2022. But hopefully we're all in some marketplace and you've supported us by purchasing some of our art.
Yeah. And hopefully we're not flamed to death by one of the two factions that have split off arguing with each other over this stuff. I don't want to judge anyone, man. If you hate crypto art because you really believe that the ecological disaster is coming, that's a valid concern, and that's fine. If you're one of the artists who want to mint stuff and make money right now, that's fine too. Like, I don't think we're judging. We're not.
Okay. Personality test then. Question. If you could roll back the entire ecological impact of NFTs, end the crypto art, so remove all the data, but also remove the money that people have made with the press of a button, would you do it? Because, like, people have made money, people have started building up their lives around it, people have been made happy, people have paid off their bills, their medical bills, their house bills and all that. If you could undo that impact now, if you're so virtuous about, you know, saving the planet and all that, would you press that button? Because you can ruin a ton of people's lives in one go.
First question that comes to mind, just to like follow-up question, is will people know that I pushed a button? You know,
Oh,
because
that's the test.
because that just changes the whole, you know, question.
No,
but
no, people won't know.
I think personally that the value in monetary terms that has been earned by everybody, like obviously it's offset by some people earning a lot, but I think in overall the amount of value that has been earned monetarily is greater than the environmental cost that has been caused over the last 2 years or 3 years since NFTs really started. Just about to watch my Twitter followers just disappear.
I was about to.
Yeah, I have like 322 Twitter followers, so like if half of them disappeared, it's still not gonna make a difference to me on Twitter.
Just title this episode Aaron's stance on NFTs.
Yes, yeah. Aaron loves NFTs.
Yeah.
Honestly, if somebody wants to if somebody's like that wrapped up in this stuff that they want to unfollow one of us or all of us because of our staff, then just because of our stand, just do it.
Just do it. Give me your phone, I'll do it for you.
Look, I've got to be the symmetrical centrist energy here, you know.
Exactly. Like we're trying to be central here.
I want all these new artists to fail. How dare they spend like 2 minutes following a Ducky tutorial and then make $500,000? How dare they?
You know, that is a really Curtis. That's a really interesting recurring theme that you're bringing up today, and I think it's very valid to discuss it. And I honestly, like, I felt this when I started doing YouTube. I felt this exact same thing because I'm like, here I am, like, roughly 2 decades into doing 3D art, right? And I feel like I've paid my dues triple. You know, I've sacrificed all like fame and fortune to work in a place where I can't show like 99% of the work I ever do professionally. And because it's like under NDAs, it's engineering stuff. It's like it's so buried, right? But I've made like W2. I have a W2 history, right? Which is for you guys who don't know, it's just a work history that proves you have taxable income. And I started this YouTube channel, and then I see like other people like just jumping in, and they've used Blender for like 2 months, and they're making like tutorials, and I'm like, what? And so I felt that. I know what you're feeling with this cryptocurrency stuff. And I kind of got over that because I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, if people like just jump in and they see something that I missed in 20 years, then great. I just learned from that. So I'm like, and I kind of like those feelings of spite dropped a lot.
I want to quickly say, I hope people don't take anything that I say or anything that all of us says too seriously in this episode. I play both fields very often.
Yeah. I think the moment I realized that this space was at that moment not different from anything else in a way was when I always forget which tutorial this is, but everyone knows it. It's that house. It's like framed on the right, and there's like grass. Do you know which one I'm talking about? It's like making a house in grass field tutorial. I don't remember who did it.
I have images in my head.
Yes, that one. And I saw literally a frame that was like slightly different. The grass was literally a little bit greener, but it was essentially that tutorial, and it was minted for and going for 1 Ethereum. And I was like, okay, like people can do this. And in some ways, like I've struggled with this too, right? Like I'm not I'm not Blender guru, and I'm not a Blender OG, right? But I do feel like now I know a lot more than when I first joined this podcast, right? And I can hold my own weight. But the sort of drive and the desire to like jump in and start making content was huge. And I'm like, well, I could very easily make content. And this is sort of insidious in a way, right? But like the idea and the opportunity to make content, loosely based, between giant air quotes, uh, of somebody else's content, like it's there. You've probably even thought about it too. You're like, oh well, I could just take this tutorial and like spin it in this other way, and then just make a brand new thing. And in some ways, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're giving credit to like this is where I got this idea from. But it kind of goes back to this thing of what we don't want to copy and paste from our current systems into the new ones is like the integrity, I think, is important when we think about like content creation, and specifically content creation, YouTube, being an online personality in the context of credit. And maybe that's not the best word for it, but just like giving credit where credit is due is hugely important, and people will notice.
Yes.
Like we notice, the internet notices too, whenever we see something that's just like, wait a minute, is that so and so's work? Yeah. Huh. And especially when it stacks up. Like we weren't born yesterday, right? So it doesn't hurt to be complicit to the scheme of loving the people around you, loving the space and the community around you, and giving back and being open and honest. That's the best word. Like just being honest and forthright and transparent about your inspiration, the work that you're putting in or didn't put in with something. Like anybody can take Grasswald and make a beautiful like green thing and be like, I made grass in Blender. It's like, you did, but you also didn't. Grasswald made that for you. And so you're like standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Just the same way that like I didn't make this iPhone by hand, but I know how to use it and make things. So just like be transparent and cognizant of that.
Okay, Markham, quick yes or no question. Are you interested in trying Cryptoart?
Boys. Yeah.
I love that. I was waiting for that.
I had to get it out.
Yes.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, like, why not? Because if it's an income stream and if it pushes me towards the goals that I have outside of Blender, sure. Do I agree with, everything that you guys have said since I've joined? Absolutely. I know there was a video that I made about, the one where everyone went nuts over the new character creator in Unreal Engine. There was one guy that was saying, I make the character, so it's my character, so I can sell that character how I want. I'm like, it doesn't work like that, buddy. Anyway, so I agree with the copying of tutorials and then going, hey, this is my artwork. Well, nah, mate, you gotta expand a little bit further, either take it to the next level,
Yeah.
But yes, I've seen some artwork and gone,
This is a curious question too, right? Because it's like the age-old question, like what is art? And I see this and hear this getting asked a lot in conversations surrounding NFTs, and like even in this chat. But it's something that I think about too. Like I've seen pieces that I'm just like, either that's one, you just hit render after you finish the tutorial, and now it's up for Ethereum, which right now is going for like $1,500, 1 ETH. Or two, it's not something that I would buy or collect, but that doesn't mean that it's not art. That's extremely subjective. But then where and how do we place value on either not corporations, but entities that curate?
Yeah.
Right? And so like, how is that different from saying this is art and this is not art? And I think that's a really interesting question that's only going to get a little bit muddier as more people jump into the space.
With art, well, this is something which I think struggle a lot with seeing crypto art, because a lot of it I don't think is art. And I'm very aware that I went to art school. So my perception of art is very, like, I'm absolutely the antithesis of an outsider artist. Like, that genre, that's not me. I like appreciate it and I can recognize it in some people. But then there's still stuff out there that I look at and I'm like, it's not art. And you can't call it art and you can't call yourself an artist. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that in a derogatory sense. But if you're doing it, it's because it's something that you have designed specifically to fulfill a specific niche or interest that you can see. Like if you hop onto Behance and you see what people are making on there, and like they're incredible like graphic designers and things, motion artists, but then people are sharing like, oh, I feel I might get flack for this, but satisfying loops are not art. They're not art. They're just not. But I can understand why people I can understand why people like them and share them and sell them. But unless you're putting like your voice into it, unless you're doing something that is meaningful with it, if it's just like, oh, I think this will sell, and so I'm going to make it, and it's going to be really polished. It's like, is this really art? Or are you just designing a product that you're selling?
Okay, I'm going to put my bit in now because I've said
I'm going to head off before we go any deeper.
yeah.
One last thing.
Save yourself, Markham.
There is a painting in Adelaide which is literally black with a red border around it. No red border along the bottom. And it makes everyone angry to see that is in the Adelaide art gallery. Right. But that is the whole point of that painting, is to raise the emotion of anger. But anyway, I'm going to go because I got to get my car fixed. See you, bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I am a firm believer that art is art. Anything can be artwork, even if it is low effort. But there is always the exceptions to it, which I never say. I always care about the feeling behind it. Like if someone wants to like get a marker and draw a line across a page, I'm like, okay, that's extremely low effort, that's stupid, that's boring. But if there was a ton of emotion that went into that line, I'm like, okay, it's got a meaning. The universe knows it's got a meaning, even if it's only through your mind that you saw it. That's artwork. But about like the whole art museum thing, which I was actually going to talk about, so thanks to Markham for throwing that in there. Effort, right? See, I know I've made fun of pieces of art in museums before that look inherently low effort, but getting the art to the museum is part of the effort of the artwork, all right? And I feel like that gives low effort artwork its validation in real life, in the physical space. If you can get into an art museum, fine, whatever, good on you, right? I'll call it artwork. It's there, you know, you went through the effort. I'm sure that was a long process. I'm sure that a lot of feeling went into that process. So the artwork itself represents more than just what it is. For digital art, I don't think people have that excuse because it's so easy to upload something. Okay, you can't use the process of putting something online, the effort behind it, as an emotional journey, a story of your life, you know. So I feel like there's some limits there.
That's a really, really good kind of eye-opening thing, because I'll say one name and see your faces. Thomas Kincaid.
Blank.
Blank. Aaron, blank.
We're so uncultured, Kev. I'm sorry.
Okay, so Thomas Kincaid. He called himself. He passed away. He called himself the painter of light, and he opened up all these stores in malls across the United States and was selling his artwork. If you look up Thomas Kincaid, you'll immediately know the style.
Okay.
I brought it up to a coworker of mine about 10 years ago, and actually probably more than that now. And he came from Bulgaria and then through Paris, and immediately recognized Thomas Kincaid's work as Paris street art. And I knew that I could always trigger him. There you go. I could always trigger him by just mentioning Thomas Kincaid, painter of light, and he would just go off on a tangent for like a half hour about how it's not art, it's just copying Paris street artists and blah blah blah. It was the funniest thing ever. And then I realized too, like, I don't think I've ever actually wanted to be known as an artiste.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have gone to art school, and I just never like. It was like with music. I used to, when I was in high school, I would play like the craziest stuff. I would listen to jazz musicians. I would listen to like classical musicians and listen to like progressive rock bands like Dream Theater and people who would really push music. And I would play it out in clubs and like no one would dig it. And it would just be like a miserable time. And I would just be like so proud of myself for being able to do this on stage or whatever. And like, I'm so great. I'm a musician. Right. And then I started playing stuff that was just kind of poppy and fun and partyable. And all of a sudden, like, people started coming up to me, asking me for autographs, to like buying the CDs we were putting out. and like following us around, and we got on the radio, and I'm like, this is so much more enjoyable. And then I was like, man, do I like want to be a starving artist who goes down and they maybe later on dies and leaves some kind of like legacy of being like this, remembered as this great artist, or do I want to have fun when I'm like creating and partying? And it's always a choice that we all make, right? So like some people want to be like the real artist and they want to do like true art and you know, use it to evoke emotion. Like the Beeple stuff is it's crazy in that it elicits emotion, right? You look at it and you see, you know, Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton giving birth to Donald Trump or whatever. Like, and that, like 90% of his artwork is like really, what's the word? Like, controversial, right?
Mm-hmm.
So true art really hits the controversial button and raises kind of a mirror to society, right? It's always about putting that mirror in front. It's like good comedy, like George Carlin used to do. Like he always throws a mirror up in front of society and says, "Look at yourself." Right? Look at what you're doing. Look at yourself. And true art does that. True music does that, right? Or it elicits an emotional response or something. And I'm kind of like, I come from like that production artist where it's just like, I kind of like work well on teams of producing stuff that's either fun or whatever. So it's kind of like that, what you said, Aaron, about like that, you know, satisfying art is not art. And if you're looking to like, you know, put something out that elicits an emotional response and is controversial and is what like true art is supposedly meant to be in the definition, correct, right? On the other hand, it's like, well, it's satisfying and people want to look at it and they like lose themselves for 15 minutes just staring at something, and maybe, you know, they have like this spark of genius while they're looking at that because their brain is like, you know, they're able to access their their subconscious and the answer to like some crazy question. Like maybe somebody's looking at, you know, the satisfying thing and they figure out cancer or something. Like so like there's a point to it, but it's just not, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna stop now.
I should just postscript my comment there by saying that I'm not saying that not being an artist, being a designer, that's not a derogatory term. I just think it's important to make like I'm like actually a qualified designer. Like that's what my degree is. I'm a designer. I'm not saying that people being not artists is a bad thing. And also there are some people who are doing satisfying leaps that I would consider art because they're more like, it's like a thing. It's more about their voice. They're trying to say something with it compared to like, I don't know, a block gets squashed into an Ethereum logo, and then the conveyor belt moves on, and the next one gets squashed into an Ethereum. And it's like,
I'm going to take it down right now. Sometimes the process of the art and then the creation of the art and is the feat itself, right? Because maybe the process of the art, moving away whether it's in a marketplace or not, but just like the process of actually creating something and getting through that technical hurdle that you may have had could be something that makes you feel like you were being creative. And maybe there is a big distinction there that between being an artist and being a creative, probably why there's two separate words, but think about it in those terms, because I like in listening to this, I'm trying to think about like, what my stance is. I know Curtis has mentioned that he's very centrist on this, but I think generally speaking, and I don't think that this is true for everyone just because of the way that life is, but I think I more often than not, try to find the value. And I think I find a lot of value in finding value. So even when I was just shooting down that tutorial upload that I saw someone minting like finished tutorial version, this is kind of what inspired my comment about the technical process, because there is value in finishing that. Like going through from beginning to end of a tutorial is not easy, especially when these tools around us more and more are designed to take our attention away and to distract us and to like make us think that we're interested in things that we're not actually interested in or that don't help further us in some way. But my stance when I find things that I think are controversial or not art or things that I don't appreciate the effort behind or what have you is just trying to think about where I can find the value. And I think that so long as we try to take a little bit of that with us whenever we're judging, not necessarily in the way of like providing feedback or critique for something, but just like really considering the values of something. So so long as we went through that first step of like, okay, is there some sort of value that I can put a spin on this, even if it's just for the like points of faith in humanity restored within me. Yeah, I think it makes it, at least for me, a lot easier to go through life without feeling spite, which does happen, without feeling fear of missing out, which does happen, without feeling imposter syndrome, which does happen, and all these things. And it's something that you can take with you outside of critiquing 3D art.
Pull that back to the marketplace though, because I think that's super valid when just appreciating art in general, appreciating anyone's efforts in general. But when you're looking at crypto art, which isn't carbon neutral, which it does have an actual cost in real terms. And I think a lot of people who are in this space as digital artists, and especially if they're younger, they may not have gone through the process of actually creating like a finished project. I know a lot of people, and I see a lot of people as well on Twitter and on Discord, and they'll make something and they'll be like, this is really cool. This is the thing that I made. And it's like, that's cool. It's one thing. It's like proof of concept of a technique. And it's like, you've done a fluid sim or you've done some node setup and it makes a cool material. But it's not like, I don't know, I wouldn't consider it like, it's not a full thing. You know, it's just like, you know, if you do an illustration of a room, it's not just like, well, I've drawn these 8 lines and now I have like the sort of shape of a room. It's like it's everything inside that room, and then it's also rendering it into like shade and value and making it 3-dimensional. And then it's also like, how much storytelling are you going to pile into that, and how much are you going to then work on it kind of after the fact in terms of like adding lighting, adding characters, maybe adding movement as well. And it's like there's a full process there to creating this one experience that somebody has when they look at it, compared to just being like, I can draw this cup real good. And it's like, well, I don't know. I just think, I think there's a lot of stuff which I see as crypto art that the person probably ought to have just dropped it on Instagram or Twitter and then kept developing their process until they had a finished work of art that then they could mint. Because I think there's a lot of stuff which gets minted at a real cost to the environment, like a measurable cost, that shouldn't have been necessarily. And I know that's offset obviously by them making money and that makes positive impact on their life, but then I don't know, it also changes the kind of the definition of art, because I know a lot of people, when Instagram was coming out and becoming more successful for artists sharing their work, it kind of changed people's definition of art, because you were then doing what got you likes, and it would like direct you in the way that you were developing as an artist. And I think now, in a very real way with crypto art, people are going into this, I'm just going to go back to satisfying loops because I see so many. But if you're an artist who makes them, then that is fine. I'm not like devaluing your effort.
Aaron hates you.
I just think I hate you.
This
you
is
make
hard for
satisfying
you.
loops. Drop them in the link in the
No,
comments.
this is hard for you to get out, but get it out. Like you're making a point.
I just think that if you make a satisfying loop and you're like, wow, that got me 7 ether, that's a really substantial amount of money. I'm saying this just as an anecdotally, I haven't done this. Just noticed Archero's face looked like shocked, like, you made 7?
What am I doing right now? I need to go mint something.
$10,000 for a soda can looping.
But then if you have like a piece of work that you put in hours, like hundreds of hours, and it didn't sell, and then you made a piece of work that was like trendy and it did sell, but it didn't really mean anything to you and it didn't give you personal artistic satisfaction making it, then I think it is detrimental if you're going to go and pursue that further and just keep making the thing which is commercially viable, because you're not developing as an artist. Trend's going to move, and then what are you going to do? You're going to follow the trend, or are you going to try and find your voice again? And like, if you're how long are you going to spend being like, oh yeah, I can really polish up this like trendy piece of work, and then you get to like 40 or 50 and you'll look back and you'll be like, well, I haven't made any impact. Like, I've spent all of this time being an artist and nobody cares about me as an artist. They care that I made stuff that they could share on Instagram or, you know, whatever.
That's true.
like Beeple has a voice. Beeple has a thing that he does that is recognizable. And I think that his earnings were worth it because of the amount of time that he's put in over the years and the amount of time that he's spent developing that pipeline.
No, that's huge. That's true.
This reminded me of something. There's a subject that I really wanted to do a discussion video about, but I didn't want to upset people that I was speaking to at the time. And it does tie into what you were saying about, we see so many people doing essentially demos of really cool things, really intelligent, really cool things. But the subject is, why do geniuses fail more often than not in real life? And just to give a bit of context, that there are so many of these shows where parents push their kids on, these child prodigies of mathematics, music, whatever, and they're amazing. And you think, whoa, they're going to do so well in life. And then you never hear about them ever again. I was prepping to do a video about that, and it would have been a bit contentious because we've got lots of little geniuses in our communities. And it's just something that I wanted to talk about to maybe give some direction. But funnily enough, as I was preparing it, I started reading this book, Originals. Page 9, it literally starts talking about why geniuses fail. Literally. They had like an entire section on it. And it's all about focus. Or rather, the lack of creativity or the lack of spreading out. Because when geniuses fixate and obsess over certain things, that's all they do. They become fantastic at one thing, but they never learn how to connect dots with life in any way. Imagine that you've been kind of raised to be fantastic at something, and all you're given is praise, so you keep doing it to receive more praise. You're never looking outside the box. So someone grows up and they go through school and they're fantastic and all their friends love them and everyone online is telling them they're great. When they get out into the world, they have no life skills for applying that. Not unless they're lucky, not unless they've been shuffled into a route which, celebrates that. And if you don't have the flexibility to look at other avenues and connect dots between them, then you're not going to be able to utilize that.
And I think everybody who does create wants to make an impact. As a musician, I certainly did. As an artist now, I've realized I've been in production for so long. Like you are a designer, right? And I've seen the work that you do for pay, and it's great. It's beautiful, and it's utilitarian. But when you want to express yourself, that's a totally different thing. And for me, like finding the time to express myself when I have like all these other like bills that are coming down on me and things that are, it's just like, oh man, like how much of time can I dedicate? And I love doing it for fun, but I realized quickly that I haven't really done art for fun in years.
On the drive-in, I was thinking about what sort of questions I would want to post to sort of help guide some conversation. I didn't know when I jumped in, we were going to be talking about my favorite subject du jour, which is crypto art. But I had a comment to make about what Aaron said recently, except now I'm blanking on exactly what it was that sparked the idea on me. But the question that I wanted to ask was, or that I thought about on the drive-in, is I'm a firm believer, I've said this a million times, that digital literacy is important. Now, with the rise of crypto art, a lot of people being stuck at home and wanting to learn tools like Blender or whatnot, Procreate and the like, are now finding ways to express themselves that maybe they didn't know they had before. I can think of one example specifically in which I was in a room with somebody who mentioned that she had just started using Procreate a year prior. I opened her Instagram and I was blown the F away. I was like, what do you mean? And, she was like, oh, yeah, I'm totally inept digitally prior to the pandemic. And, obviously I was stuck at home. I had this old laptop, I started working on it. And there's so many cases like that where people didn't know that they had this sort of like innate creative flow that they could just put things out. And I don't mean publish things on Instagram. I just mean like literally just like get your voice an idea out. And this is what sort of was sparked by what you were saying, Aaron. Like I've been in situations in which a client will tell me, can you make this look like this person's Instagram photo? And that rubs me the wrong way for several reasons, but specifically for me, something that I've been struggling with, and which is the reason why my social media presence has died down, is that I do want to mint a piece of art eventually, and I do want to continue publishing and sharing the things that I want to do, but in the not public sphere, I'm working on crafting my voice. Like Curtis, you have your color scheme, and that's very indicative of your work. People has his own themes. Aaron, you've got like your crazy, beautiful architecture stuff. Kev, I don't know what you no, I'm just- Kev, you've got like this awesome way of explaining things in a very like comical and friendly, comfortable way. And it just like you can tell you have this wealth of knowledge behind you, but it just comes off as like somebody you'd want to have a beer with, which are
Thanks.
all very like your voices, right? And so like in my own way, I'm trying to find my voice before I start just putting things out there, because to me that piece of work that I feel align and that I identify with will be more valuable to me specifically, because I will know that I've achieved this, right? But that is in some ways how I view self-expression. And so the question that is being able to translate what's going on up here, what's going on here, into what I'm doing, whether that be writing, music, art, what have you. And so I want to pose a question to you all, and you can think about this in whatever way you want to, whether it be in terms of workflows, in terms of the headspace you get into before you do this. But in short, like, what does self-expression mean to you, or what is self-expression to you? And you can take a moment to think about it and contextualize it however you like. We'll go to a quick commercial break where I will once again remind you, if you like the conversations that we're having, you like to hear us chat, or you just want to hang out with us casually on Discord at some time, because that might be something that will happen in the future, please, pretty please, hit the subscribe button. I feel awful saying that every time, but you got to do it. Hit like if you like this, and share it with a friend, because that also really helps. But most importantly, just connect with us, because we're all just normal people, just like you, that just are yearning for more friends and connections, at least in my case. So
Yeah.
I really love seeing your comments, especially when you guys fight for who's first and who's not. But that should have given them enough time to think. So now I'll just like break the wall and go back to the conversation. What is self-expression to you?
So for me, it's codifying feelings. That's what self-expression is for me. Like codifying what you feel or a moment in a way that it becomes something other than you. So it's like you're leaving a trail, something in the universe. And I always come back to the example of like cave paintings, you know? It's like the people are long and gone, but something exists that was proof that something happened. And I'm generally a very emotional person. I might not always come off that way on videos or in places like this, but I am very introverted and I'm just like a mess. So I like codifying a lot of things, but I don't feel like I can always make the things I want to when talking about self-expression, because there's a lot of feelings I want to make artwork about that I think would come off as maybe a bit, well, I would get put into certain categories or be judged for it by certain groups. So I do withhold that a little bit. So yeah, you know, do with that information as you will. Who's next?
Yeah.
Thanks for your answer.
Yeah, the judges are a hard thing to deal with. And it's ridiculous, because 90% of the people judging stuff can't do crap themselves. They just can't. Like, I've seen the people who throw shade at me, and like maybe one or two of them over time have actually, like, I've looked at their stuff and gone, wow, all right, I guess they have a point. Most of it, people are just they don't even put their own stuff up there. They're just clowns. So you just kind of write it off. But it's true. It does hit you, because it's like, what's your problem? Why be judgmental? I like to be constructive, and like you said, like you often repeat, Kurt, is constructive when you're invited to be constructive.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never go off on somebody's stuff just going, oh yeah, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. I'm like, I'm not in their head when they're creating it. I don't know what they were dealing with when they were creating this, so I'm not going to pretend that I know like their process.
Yeah.
And like, the worst thing is like calling somebody out for something that they actually were thinking of and decided to leave out for some reason. You don't know.
Kev, you have just made me think of something. I've always had this issue, and it's not about like not being able to take criticism, but sometimes I'm making something and I don't care what you think. I don't want to. If someone tells me something I should do, I don't want to do it. Like because you've told me, I'm going to not do it. And one of the reasons is it's not because I don't like them, or it's not because I don't want to take the criticism. If I'm working on something that's emotional to me, it's mine. And as soon as I do something that someone else says, it's no longer mine. You know, it's like, what's that whole thing about, like, if, you know, if a bird or whatever smells a scent, like, on a chick, which isn't true anyway, I guess, but it's like, it's like that, like with the artwork. Like, as soon as someone else touches it, it's gone, it's dead to me.
Toss
So-
the egg out of the nest. Yeah.
Exactly. So I kind of had that feeling with it as well. I would like to be a bit more open with self-expression in my artwork in the future. Things might get a little bit weird, maybe some people might get annoyed, but we'll see. We'll get there.
I think it's quite difficult with self-expression as well, because there's I can't remember who said it originally, but there's a quotation. Inspiration will only ever find you working. So when people are like, oh, I don't want to do anything because I don't feel inspired to do it. It's like, well, you're going to get inspiration at some point. You're not going to be able to do it. And then you're going to sit down, you're going to try, and you're going to start drawing or modeling or whatever. And it's going to be trash. And then you're going to be immediately discouraged and give up. So for a start, you need it to have a constant practice. You need to maintain a personal practice if you ever want to reach any kind of height creativity.
We also live in a society, at least in the countries that we represent collectively on this Discord server, that favor administrative tasks over creativity. And if you look in the corporations, the administrative type jobs, the managerial, that type thing is always favored and thrown, money's thrown at that, the bonuses are thrown at that. Creativity, that's always like down on the bottom. So like, how you're right. I mean, you have to sit and work at your craft so that when inspiration does strike, you're going to create something that you're going to be proud of and not think, oh, I suck, and give up, right? People see the gold rush right now in NFT and they want to jump in and they want to mint their stuff, and they don't care about the ecological impact. They just want to do it because they can make money at it. But they're just throwing up stuff that they saw on some tutorial and calling it theirs, right? Like, there's no work. There's no there's nothing that they actually worked toward to get to the level where they've earned the right to put that up there and get paid for it. Well, it's always the starving artist syndrome. Like, the jazz musician who's, you'll go to a club in like New Orleans and see this amazing, amazing musician who will never, ever, ever be known anywhere else because they're so good at their craft, but they don't know how to market themselves. Versus like the person who picks up a guitar, learns 4 chords, goes and writes some like stupid pop song, and like that song like Rebecca Black Friday or whatever, and it goes viral, and like that person becomes like a millionaire playing 4 chords.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that?
That's huge. It's something I struggle with too. Like, something I always say if I'm working with someone in terms of like productions is that you shouldn't wait until the day that you have a shoot in the context of like a video production or a photo production to try out your equipment, to try different settings, because just kind of like in the same way that it's you want to strike while the iron's hot, or inspiration only ever finds you working, I think is what you said. Someone said.
Yeah.
You can attribute it to me, it's fine. If you don't have a practice, if you don't try to sharpen the sword, if you don't refine your tools, if you don't refine your workflows or whatever, and you just wait until the moment where you have to do it, then you might choke. And so the way that I would reconcile that is just like, maybe you don't really like. I also struggle, like Curtis said, with making the thing that I envisioned, and it's always like the thing that I envisioned is always so much better than what actually ends up happening. But it's really not until after I finish doing it and going like, oh, it's shit, that I think like, okay, well, it was about, oh, whoops.
I think your video just froze for a sec.
I was like this, and then and it's not until after I've sort of finished the piece that I'm working on that I recognize that it was more about the process of getting there, and that next time when I want to work on a shader in the context of Blender, that I will be able to put the base of it together faster than I was this previous time, because I actually put in the work to sit down and do it, instead of going like, I have this great idea for this piece of artwork that I want to put together, but I've actually never done any texture painting, so I don't know how to do it, or I want to upload my first minted NFT, but I don't want it to be like something like a GIF or a video. I want to go like another level, but I haven't put in the work into figuring out how to bake, or how to like take items and objects in the 3D space and like make them work well on augmented reality experiences, which is something like I've been toying with, right? So if you don't put in the work, when the time comes where you actually have to put in the work, or where you feel really compelled to do it, if you haven't put it in consistently, or you haven't just practiced, if you don't have a practice, like Aaron was saying, then you're gonna find yourself hitting some walls. And then you're only ever going to recognize that when it's too late. And you're only going to be able to meet that if you've put in the practice. So just do it. What is self-expression to you, either Kevin or Aaron?
So with my practice, what people know me for is not what my like self-expression kind of work is. Like my artwork that I do for me personally, and like the things that I've got planned are some very weird short films that people are gonna, if they ever come to the light, people are gonna look at them and be like, that's, for a start, that's, you should talk to somebody. And also this is not what we know you for. And it's kind of like when Taylor Swift makes political statements and everybody's like, stay in your lane. And it's like, well, I make shaders and I talk about proceduralism a lot, and then I come out with like some really weird character animation stuff, and it's like, that's totally outside my sphere as far as people know me for. So like a question back to you, how do you kind of reconcile yourself with sharing work that is your personal work, that is meaningful to you personally, but is outside the kind of the bounds of why people follow you?
That's a great question. I think the answer for me, at least, is that I don't. And that's why if you literally go on my pages right now and see what I've put out, I haven't, because I'm still working on refining that voice. And I think part of, like, I've said this so many times, I think if you go back to every single episode I've ever been on, I say this, but like I'm holding myself back because I'm constantly trying to work on what is this voice? This post that I put out, am I putting it out for me or am I putting it out for likes? Like, part of the reason why I stopped posting stuff on Instagram is because I fell into the trap, just as we all have. Like, there's absolutely you can't lie to me and tell me that you don't care about the likes or that you don't care about like whether people actually looked at it, because it kind of does dig at you a little bit. Like, these are apps and programs that are designed for that specifically, that like heart emoji mining, right? Comment mining, that like metric. So far, I've reconciled it literally by just communicating and talking and sharing with you all, because to me that feels so much closer to what I would want Instagram to be, a place where I can like share with a community of people who don't care that the photo that I posted today is so differently color graded and just like composed than the one from yesterday, or that the thing that I'm working on, which is like also like a huge I think subject for me that you touched on earlier, Aaron, is not finished. It's just like a work in progress, right? And so they still got, for me, the reconciliation comes from actually sharing like with my peers, legitimate peers, not just strangers and ghosts and bots on the internet, because I feel a sense of reward that isn't, at least in my view of it, negatively impacting my chemistry for the worse when I share a piece of work in progress with you all, and you say whatever you might say, because I know that I actually value what you're saying, your thoughts on it and your experience and like where that all comes from, so much more than I would if I were trying to refine a persona online for the sake of having a portfolio that I can point to and say, look, I've got X amount of followers and people that care about the things that I'm doing. Because to me, again, the TLDR of the answer is like the reconciliation comes from knowing that the stuff that does see the light of day is stuff that I'm happy with, and it's stuff that represents me beyond the sort of barriers and the layers and the like hashtags that you could put on my piece of work.
And I think I have an answer for Aaron's as well. Like, how do you reconcile what people want to see versus the whole self-expression? I think my answer is I just chicken out. Because I've definitely worked on artworks before and thought, okay, how do I make a video out of this? Yeah, but people are going to find this bit weird and this is going to be weird, so let's just trim it all down. Get rid of like all the stuff that I wanted to be in there in the first place and turn it into something that's a bit more technical. And then I'm like, okay, let's do a video about that instead. So like I basically strip it of anything super personal and then, file that out there.
For a long time, I was just going for the low-hanging fruit. I was making stuff that, it was just kind of fun that I wanted to make just because it was fun. Things that had inspired me, like, the Borg cube inside of the Borg cube, stuff like that. Twinkies, cupcakes, whatever. I don't know.
Pure inspiration.
Slime monsters because it was fun.
Mhm.
And that sort of thing. And I kind of just I think I wanted to get that feeling back of teaching, because when I used to teach in the classroom, I used to go home and feel really good about myself that I actually like affected people's lives and helped them, especially when people were struggling with something, and then all of a sudden like the light comes on in their head and they get it, and then they start producing some amazing stuff, and you're like, and the stories that would come back from me from some of these students, like the people I was teaching when I was in my 20s were in their 40s and 50s. One was in her late 70s, and you just realize you're affecting people's lives. You're helping them.
Mm.
And being a production artist for so long, I'm helping a corporation make a ton of money that may or may not mostly not come back to me, right? So jumping on YouTube, I was like, wow, I actually feel that feeling again, that I'm actually helping people. Like I try to respond to as many comments as I can and help people, because I feel like I'm actually affecting change in the world. It's weird, but I'm using something that I actually know to help other people and to help them better their lives. And even in a small way, is like creating something in Blender or in Houdini or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like if they can take that and feel better about themselves and go on to do other things and be better and better their lives and maybe put more food on their tables and help their families, great. Then I've affected positive change in the world, instead of just living for money or sucking up resources or whatever I could be doing, drinking beer, which is fun, but like not, you know what I mean? Like I like that feeling. So when I started the YouTube channel, I did see the money, and the money aspect, and then there was always the kind of the not the bitter aspect, but like the spiteful aspect of like, oh, that person just started learning and they're growing, or they're doing the same thing, and it's like, but at the same time, it's like, well, when I read the comments of people that I'm helping, I'm like, I get that feeling again. I'm like, that's basically back to why I started doing it. And then I realized how cool it would be to change it into something that I could sustain myself with, so I don't have to go to work every day. Um, and that's where that question comes in, is like, how do you how do you create stuff that's more self-expression versus stuff that's going to get you, likes and subscribes? And for me, I have to balance it out, because I want to take this into something that I can transition um, into something where I don't have to go to work every day.
You've got both in one there. You're almost like, well, I do this thing to get me likes and subscriptions, but this is also myself, and this is my self-obsession.
Yeah.
This is my self-expression.
Mhm.
Like to go and teach people, to get that feedback and to share something. And then from on the other side, it's like, well, these people get value from it, so they follow along and they build the audience.
Yeah. Thanks. Actually, that does codify it for me.
Yeah, like combining the two is huge and important. Sounds like I know when I put a video out, just to add to my reconciliation, like when I put a video out, it's over for you hoes. Like it's done. But until then, like I'm just gonna keep up the internal fight of not wanting to add to the noise, because there's so much noise and so much crap out there. Again, like everything's subjective, right? Take it with a grain of salt. But
yeah,
there's tutorials that I watch where I'm just like, I know that this is 8 minutes and 38 seconds long because you wanted to put an ad in there. Like if you did not add value, save for the 30 seconds where you actually explain the thing that I wanted to know. And I don't want to do that, because even at the point where I'm not in a financial situation where I don't have to do that, it just doesn't feel right to me. And so struggling with like not adding to the noise and actually providing value, but at the same time trying to provide value intrinsically and economically for myself is really challenging. And I think it's what a lot of us like struggle with. Like it'd be really easy to just find any topic that's hot at the moment if you're at the forefront of it and make some content about it, because it's a quick cash grab or attention grab or like grab. It doesn't mean that you should do it. And like it's fine for people that do it. There will always be someone that does it. But personally, I fight against it, because I know that it will weigh heavier on me negatively to know that I sold out in that way than it would weigh on me or free me of a weight physically and emotionally to know that it got 1 million views. I like back a couple years ago, like my mom's been telling me to start a YouTube channel for ages. I've been putting it off because I want to find that voice, right? And I want things to be like consistent and look a certain way, especially now that I like know how to do these things. just finding any one thing to talk about and touch on that doesn't feel like preaching to the choir or adding to the noise is tricky.
Very true.
Yeah, adding to the noise is always the trick. Like I've tried to put out, I put out some garbage before, just on my YouTube channel, just because. Um, but most of the time, I try to pack stuff in as much as I can, cut the fluff out, and see where it goes. And it's tough to not add to the noise. It really is, because there's stuff that like I see other stuff that I would love to do, and I'm like, I just don't want to touch that because it's so and so has done it already, and I don't want to step on them, or I don't want to feel like a copycat. When Ian came around, I saw the genius in it, and I tried doing it, and I'm like, I just realized quickly I can't do that. You got to find your own voice, and sometimes your own voice takes forever to hit. That's why I'm happy, like that the Meat Monster Mind Flayer Stranger Things video took off, because I actually put a lot of care and a lot of attention into that video. And if that one failed, if that didn't take off, I don't know that I would have kept doing YouTube at that point. I honestly don't. I would have been like, I might have just kept it going just to teach people, and like just had like a video a month or something of like whatever. I'm so happy that took off.
But
Yeah.
in some ways, that's like the core of the success of that video, at least in my eyes, is that you can tell, right? It feels like it. Like you sit through it and you watch it and you're like, this was effort, thought, and like care and love put into this piece of work.
Thanks.
In so many different angles, in terms of the production value, and then what's being taught, and the way that it's all being shown to you. And so like in some ways, that's part of why it's so successful, is because it's transparently like so you. But like and going to like adding to the noise, like it's just it would feel like selling out. Like it's really easy, but I've been sort of guilty of thinking this too. Just like, well, anybody could make a 1 minute video, a 1 minute explainer, or like what does he call a lazy tutorial? But that's not true. That's not true.
It's
like
not.
Many tried, every single one failed. Save for the original ones, and then the ones that were like approximate copies that shifted in some direction and took on their own voice and their own tone, right?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily true that like anybody could make this, right? And going back to like the conversation about like NFTs and stuff, like if you look at a piece of artwork and you're like, that's not really art, like why is that up there? It's like, okay, where's your super rare application, right? And it's true. Like there's some layers of work that like we don't see that took to get to that place, that have their own merit and their own value, right? But I don't want to be guilty of adding to the noise, and so I've even considered that too. Like I was and had a lot of subjects a couple of months back where I was just like, right now on Blender, I'm trying to find how to do this one specific thing, and every damn tutorial is way too long, and the thing that I need is only 20 seconds long. So I would just make my channel just 20-second videos, and then the voice that I try to avoid comes back in the back of my head, and it's like, well, that's not really lucrative. Like nobody's really, the algorithm's just gonna dunk on you and be like, we're not gonna show you to anybody.
Exactly.
And so I just didn't do it, right? But that defeats the whole purpose of
It does.
of doing that, because maybe there is some merit to like getting people the information that they want quickly, so they can just be in and out and move on about their day. And maybe that's what the channel's about, right? Or maybe that's what like that string of videos is about. And it doesn't add to the noise. If anything, it detracts from the noise. So it's a battle, man.
Yeah.
It's a battle.
If we're going to carry on this therapy session, yeah, like going back to the whole NFT thing slightly, about me being like very centered and always on both sides of whatever, feeling spiteful towards people, really happy that people are making money. It's the same thing with like all this YouTube stuff. Sometimes I feel like I need to do stuff just for the algorithm and for a business standpoint, because that's better in the long run and you have more opportunities. And the other half of me always goes, no, F everyone else. Like, just make what you want to make. This is your time. This is your life. This is your platform. This is called Curtis Holt. Put what you want on there. And if people like it, then they like it. And it's always riding in between these two. It's like there's just two different personalities going on. And like they just can't resolve properly. So I'm always jumping between both of it.
It's funny because you kind of said that in some way, right? Like earlier in the conversation, you were saying in some ways like you just value people who are putting, not even just in today's conversation, but generally I feel like you were somebody who values like people who just put themselves out there. But then you're also saying like, I don't feel comfortable right now putting myself out there in a very genuine way, because my community may react differently to it or negatively to it or in a way that I don't foresee, right? And so it's like that voice coming back through the back door again and just being like, hey, I'm back here to F your S up. And yeah, that's the struggle. That's the artist struggle.
It is. And you know, I felt it too when I rebranded. I'm like, I'm not putting up with people's garbage anymore. Like if somebody like pisses me off, I'm just like, banned. I don't care. I don't care. Like it's I'm not taking that weight on my shoulders anymore of like, oh no, if somebody hates me, I better do something different. No, I don't care. Like, you hate me, whatever. That's your problem.
Especially for those of us who have our names as our brands, it's like,
that's a tough one.
A lot of people don't realize that this is our place. This is like our corner. You know, like if you come into the Discord server that I'm kind of run, then that's like you're in my house. You know, if you start doing stuff which is going to upset the other people in my house, I'm just going to get rid of you. There's no skin off my back. So it's not like, I don't feel like I owe that to people. But then at the same time, there's a lot of people who are in audiences in general who are like, this creator belongs to me and they must do as I wish for them to do.
Yes.
And that's a bit of a difficult balance to kind of to please everybody in a way.
You want to keep it positive, right? You want your space to be a good experience for other people. And when the haters come in, it's just like, you have no place here. Be gone.
Yeah, I've annoyed quite a few people with my Discord server and with my comments and that, because it is my personal space as well as a professional avenue for notifying people of content. But like, I've designed it in a way where it filters out personalities that aren't going to match with what I feel like is my inner personality. So the only people that get access to all the stuff are the people that I would be comfortable with breezing out, chilling with all day, every day, like without any effort wasted. And that annoys people because sometimes people lose access to that and then they have a hissy fit. And I'm like, look, if you're the kind of person that has a hissy fit for losing that, you're not the kind of person that I wanted there in the first place. So take the hint. People come in and they say, oh, you should change this, that, and the other. And as you say, it's like someone coming into your house and saying, you should reorganize that. By the way, I don't like these decorations. Can you change this? And I'm just like,
yes, exactly. That's the best analogy. That's the best analogy.
My house, spot on. Not your house. Go away.
You know? Yeah. My house is a mess and I like it this way.
Exactly.
I'm not making my bed.
That's exactly it. Why are you in my bedroom? Go away.
Exactly. Cool. Why are you even in here? How'd you get in?
I definitely see that, and then, like, how that can be just a really weird thing to navigate, where, because, as I mentioned with Kev's work, right, specifically that video, like, you can tell with people, especially if you've been following them for a while, and I don't mean necessarily on social media, but just like their trajectory, like how much work, care, affection goes into what they're making. In some ways, like, that vulnerability from the artist kind of makes people in some ways feel like they are somehow, that the artist is somehow indebted to them for being part of that journey. It's really weird, because especially like with your communities, I've seen some of that just in comments or the way that people try to interact with you all, where it's just kind of like sensing a rapport that maybe isn't really there in that way, because you've been so candid with whatever it might be, whether it's, you know, like talking about criticism and feedback and the like, or like just generally like sharing your life experience with them. And there's like a weird line there to ride between the sort of like celebrity status or just being some public figure or an open person, and having people come and think that because of that they're then entitled to help you run the show in some ways, or like to tell you, you know, what drapes you need or whatnot.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this is my show.
Yep. I've received essays from people, quite literally. And other people in my community have also received essays when they were too cowardly to talk to me, explaining about exactly how they think things should be run. And I'm like, well, everything you see, everything you've been given is pretty cherry-picked. Like a cherry-picked interpretation. I mean, I try and be as genuine as possible in videos, but you can never get the full example of who someone is just through this kind of a limited format. As soon as the camera is on, people behave differently, even if things are scripted. even if we've chatted in voice calls and stuff, you're never going to get the full person, you know. So
No, you're not.
if advice or ideas that you want to impose on someone kind of breaches on personal territory, you better hope that you know who they are really before doing that, because you know it might come off the wrong way, and it usually does. I remember one thing. I got you know, the exit surveys on Patreon. Usually people don't do them, but I got one that said they were moody and changed direction, and I was like, "You're goddamn right, I'm moody. I'm a human being, and I'm an artiste." So,
Yeah,
It's got her praise.
those exit surveys are hard.
Rather than being called like, oh, it's just too stoic, just unfeeling, being told that you're moody, that's like nice.
Yeah.
Good. You're
Yeah.
doing
It's
good.
I'm not a robot.
You've seen my humanity.
yeah, it's weird,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's like they have real emotions, but I don't want my creators to have emotions. I want them to produce stuff.
That's
Just-
not what I pay them for.
Exactly.
Exactly. I pay you. It's like,
Uh,
yeah, you do, but you know, for Patreon is different. Patrons, you know, they do pay you, and you know, I do kind of bend over backward. I haven't had to for a lot in Patreon, but I have like created specific videos for specific people and put like big effort in, even though they're only paying me like $2 or whatever. Like I don't care. Like if they're putting their money up, I'm like, you know, I'll help you out.
Just for people watching who might be considering making a Patreon, like you don't have to bend over backwards. That
You don't.
You can if that's the agreement that you make with your audience. But at the end of the day, they are knowingly and willingly supporting you and the work that you're doing. That doesn't mean that you owe them anything at all.
Yeah.
Not even a comment, not even a conversation. And if you start with that as the basis and you lower the expectations ridiculously, it's sort of the same as under promising and over delivering. In that, while people may not expect the bare minimum from you, anything that you will provide from then on will be taken as like, oh, I'm glad this is happening. But again, that's the agreement that you turn into. Like if you have a Patreon and your model is that based on whatever subscription that you will do something, then that's what you've agreed to do with your audience, right? But it doesn't mean that you and there's a problem too in terms of the like contextualizing and phrasing of this whole NFT space is that like question of ownership, right? Like you don't own the artwork. Just because I purchased a piece of art to collect doesn't mean that I own it or that it's now mine to give away or whatever. And even legally in terms of like what it comes down to the way that the chain works and all this yada yada, like blah 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 through merge sort, I don't you don't own it. And you don't own the artist, and no one owes anybody anything. So this is just like agreements that we've all entered into as people who want to take part in these spaces. And it's always like really important to think about if you haven't yet, because it will save you from a lot of awkward conversations and like hardships down the line. Especially if you're considering going into Patreon or one of these spaces in which you will be sort of more open to an audience of people who are willing to support your work.
Yeah, and that's a very good caveat. Just because I happen to, you know, I do, like I have in the past, it doesn't mean that I always will. But like, you know, there's times if somebody's really cool and they ask for something, hey, I don't know how to do this, I'll make a quick video on it, sure. But like, there are people who like, well, I've seen this on other people's Patreons too, where they think they own them because they pay them like, you know, $3 a month or whatever. It's like, you know, you don't. So I've seen people in their Patreons, on their page, put up like, you do not, you know, you support me because you like me. This does not mean that you can demand my time. And they put this whole like caveat list there before people sign up. So you might, if you're thinking about putting a Patreon and you don't want to have to bend over backward or whatever, like put a caveat there. It's all Arturo is right. Like it is the agreement you enter into and the perception you put out there when you create your Patreon.
Thankfully, most of my patrons are very understanding about that. And I have
mine are too. I have great people, but I
have some very nice conversations with some of them, like just go really in depth, telling me about their lives, and I tell them a bit about my life as well. And it's like, okay, this is a nice, very like human engagement, you know. So
it is. I feel like
that.
I'm, you know, building friendships. It's incredible. You know, and I try to give them back the value that they give me, and it's you know, it's an equitable trade.
There's one person, I won't say who they are because I haven't asked them and whatever, but they were very supportive, and they were probably the coolest person I've ever spoken to by like email in terms of talking about projects, because they were like, okay, I'm going to support you because I think this project's really cool. I'd like you to keep working on it, but don't do it because I've asked you to. Like,
Cool.
like I understand how this works because they've been doing like development for a long time. They were like, you'll come back around to it when you feel like it, and when you do, just keep going, you know. And if you want to take a break from it, that's fine. Just keep going around in a circle. I've never ever had anyone say that to me, ever.
Yeah.
They were like,
Yeah.
in my life, I go around in circles in my projects. It's fine. I understand it. Don't feel under pressure. Just do it when you want. I was like,
Yeah.
Yep.
that's
It's
crazy.
so great to hear that people like that are out there. Because Ellie recently, who's like not on today, but has been on previous podcasts, had another Patreon, and this person sent a message kind of similar to that. Oh, did I lose? Nope, I'm back.
Yep.
Similar to that essentially said like, please don't feel pressured by my patronship, or what are the verbiages, right? Like, I'm doing this to support you as an artist. I understand that like even this act alone can be anxiety inducing in some way, to just be like, oh no, one more person that I have to like
Yep.
you know, bend over backwards for, because that's kind of what we feel like when we sort of enter these spaces or these agreements. But it's always great to, like, you know, if you are an understanding person like that, artists will love getting those messages, or, you know, creators, people just generally appreciate that, because it means that you, if you really do, that you understand like how it works, the way that, you know, that inspiration strikes or doesn't strike, the way that like sometimes the outside life, outside of the photography work or the Blender work or whatever it is that you're supporting the person for, can be overwhelming. And like, that's such a valid and like strong way of showing support. Is just saying like, don't worry, I got you. Like, it's fine. I'm here with you. Like, that's, to me, leaks, and maybe it's because I've never gotten a message like this, but leaks better than getting a message like, oh my god, I love you so much, your work is amazing, I want it all over my house. Like, to me, it's like, I just want to know someone's got my back, you know. As long as I've got a community and people in my corner, it doesn't matter if I've got like 6,000 million followers or whatever. Like, I just want to know I've got solid people, and that is an example of a solid person. Just like, I know how this goes, but I'm with you.
Yep. And I've gotten messages like that through Patreon, and I love it. I have such respect for the people on my Patreon list, and it's a small list, but it compared to others, I mean, it's pretty big, but it's still like, it's amazing. Like, the people are amazing, and I'm grateful that people are out there. Just, you know, I look at the, you know, the interaction that I get and the downloads, and it's like, it's not a lot, yet people are still on there.
Yeah.
So they, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah,
It really is. Like, they must just like what I do. And I'm happy to keep, you know, doing more of it.
And as somebody who's not like a fully launched patron, or what is it, Patreon or Patreon?
Yeah, I always get confused.
Yeah, I don't have anything to plug, but I have deep dived into you all here, obviously. So if people wanted to find your Patreon and check out what we're talking about, we could just round robin through them. How would they find you?
Patreon.com/Curtis Holt.
Yeah, patreon.com/KevBCG, I think.
Patreon.com Markham3D.
Yeah.
Erindale.
Yeah, so simple.
That's easy.
I love it. I love sharing the YouTube channel. When like talking to new people, they're like, "Oh yeah, where can I find it?" YouTube.com/Curtis Holt. It's like, it's so easy to remember. Just type it in. It's right there. Any messages to the editor, because I'm not editing anymore? Hello.
Yeah. Hey, editor. It could maybe be me, but I'm wrapping up some work. Could you please just cut out all the times where I went and just I purposely, having been in this world, tried to resume from a position that was kind of close to where I was before I fucked up. So if you pretty please could just make me look a little less dumb, I'd appreciate that.
If you could remove everything contentious that we mentioned in the Cryptoart section, aka the entire section, then that would be very much appreciated.
Yes, that Amish comment. I'm gonna take slack for that. So I don't know. I was making a point. I can leave it all up.
I think the crypto conversation, unless obviously we feel differently by what is it, panel or numbers or whatever, but I think it's got value, even if it is slightly contentious. Although if you are planning to do something and then this kind of reflects poorly on that after the fact, I get it. but at the same time, like, it's an evolving conversation that I think we are like so much more than entitled to backtrack on or like to change our views on, because we're only working with the information that we have at the time of recording.
It's very true. We really are. There's our opinions are definitely going to change as time goes on. It's just how it works. Like, and we don't. It's so new that none of us have, you know, the entire, you know, ball of knowledge to be able to draw judgments or conclusions or anything from.
Yeah. Also, since we're presumably not adding this version in, if somebody has a problem with that.
I never stopped recording, so the option's there to leave it in.